Hey guys, welcome to the channel, and this is another decade build for my decade series that I've been doing every Saturday. If you haven't seen any of the other ones, first of all, where have you been? I'll provide a link to the playlist down below as well as in the top right corner. But today we are going to be doing a Tudor Revival estate, and we're in the 1920s. I'm so excited. I love the 20s. Just everything about it is amazing. It was a really exciting time, and I love it. So on the left is an example of what a woman would wear, and on the right is an example of what a Tudor Revival home looks like. I was just showing, that they put in a lot of detail to the floor, some interior and exterior shots, and this is some examples of the outside landscaping, which you'll see later. But yeah, so the 20s, it's kind of funny because the people, like the younger generation in the 20s, they were all about being modern, and they wanted to have new ideas and new lifestyles, because what had happened was World War I had just ended, and a lot of the people during this time, they were just traumatized by this war. And so after World War I, many London outer suburbs had developments of houses in this style, which reflected kind of like a nostalgia for rural values. But this type of style was pretty popular not only in the UK, but in United States and in Canada, especially in northern New Jersey area where Inglewood and Teaneck is. There's like a ton of these Tudor Revival homes up there. But anyway, so I find it kind of odd that this type of style would be popular during this time, especially since towards the later years of the 1920s, that's when Art Deco started to become popular. But Art Deco actually wasn't popular until the late 20s, early 30s. But anyway, I still find it kind of funny that such an old style kind of had a comeback. And so, what is Tudor style? Well, the Tudor style, it was called Mock Tudor in the UK, but basically it started in the UK. And the revival aspects of Tudor architecture is the style of English vernacular architecture of the Middle Ages that kind of survived into the Tudor period, which was 1500 through 1559. And so it became really popular in the 20s, especially in suburban areas in America, and it was loosely based on late medieval prototypes. So even though it was like a Tudor style, it wasn't technically Tudor, if you know what I mean. Just bits and pieces of the Tudor aesthetic were used in these homes. Things like ornamental half timbering, stucco, masonry, stained glass, veneered walls, and like steeply pitched roofs. I really like this style. I think that pretty versatile. Like, I think it's a good transitionary style going from the craftsman and arts and crafts, which were popular in earlier years. It just kind of transitioned into something that's also in the past, but was also made a little bit modern, as they do. So some interesting facts about the 20s. President Harding, he was actually the first president to install a radio in the White House, and that was in 1922. And because of the radio, it helped to spread jazz music, which was the new thing that everyone loved. And people like Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, and Cole Porter, they kind of just became household names in a way. They were super popular, and they kind of made a way for the jazz scene to become popular as a whole. So the reason why I did such a massive build is, well, first of all, I haven't done one in a while, and I was feeling a little ambitious, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, there was moments while I was building this, I was like, why did I do this? I was feeling a little stressed, but that's okay. I really like how it turned out. I think it's true to the period and the style of the home because, like I said, I didn't want to go too Art Deco-y because that didn't really happen until the later 1920s. So, but I do have some hints of it just because, it was a thing. As I was saying before, the 20s was basically an aftermath of World War I, so a lot of young people wanted to forget about the war and just enjoy their life again because it was super stressful, a lot of people died, and it was just a crazy time. A war hadn't happened like that since the Civil War. A lot of things were going on at this time. And during this time, the Industrial Revolution was in full effect. It was in full swing. And a lot of machines were invented and created during this time to basically alleviate labor. So a lot of people had more money, more time to spend just on leisurely activities like going to the movies, dancing, going to sporting events. And the car industry was crazy. Millions of Fords were sold, so there was a ton of cars, and that's one reason why it's kind of nicknamed the Roaring 20s, was because a lot of people moved to the cities, and the cities were crowded and noisy, and, because of all the machines and the cars. So that's in the music too. So that's kind of why it was nicknamed the Roaring 20s. One of my favorite books, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, was published in the 20s, and another novel that was published was A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the Great Gatsby, the most recent one that came out, I loved the aesthetic of it, like the set design, the costumes, everything I loved, but it really threw me off when they added music that was like current music in there and just kind of snuck it in there, and I was like, why? That was one thing that kind of turned me off to it, but otherwise I kind of liked it. Anyway, so also something really cool, the 19th Amendment was passed in the 20s, and this allowed women the right to vote. So women had this new level of independence. They were attending college. They had their own money. They had this level of independence that they never had before. Because before, it was just, have a lot of babies and stay at home and do the cooking. So that was kind of a challenge to their life before, women's life before. So what else happened? So the Harlem Renaissance. So this is kind of cool too. It was a big win for people of color. The Harlem Renaissance was the African American artistic and literary culture that was developed in the 20s. And after or during World War I, there was a movement with African Americans where they basically migrated from southern farmlands into northern cities. And it influenced African American authors, artists, and musicians as a whole. So it was a really big deal for the African American community. And it was embraced by people, especially music. And what you'll see in a bit, I actually put in a secret room to go to. It's actually a speakeasy because during this time, alcohol was prohibited. It was the Prohibition era. So the Prohibition era was from 1920 to 1933, and it was basically to try and alleviate some of the crime and corruption that kind of surrounded alcohol and the sale of alcohol. And it failed horribly. People are gonna do what they're gonna do, and if they can't do it, they'll do it in secret. You know what I mean? And that's like a perfect example of why similar things like that don't work. So here in the Great Hall, I wanted to put in a secret entryway to go downstairs. That's where the speakeasy is, and speakeasies were saloons or nightclubs that sold alcohol illegally during this time period. During the Prohibition, speakeasies were named speakeasies because people who wanted to come in had to whisper a code or code words to enter the clubs. And speakeasy clubs used to claim that they were just selling soft drinks, but actually served alcohol after hours and behind the scenes. Since this is a residential home, and I was trying to think of like a twist to have it make sense, since it's not necessarily like a public lot or anything. If you remember seeing like a bag of money on on the desk in the library, I kind of think that the owners of this estate might be mobsters, and maybe they entertain their guests or guys or women who are part of the gang come down here to relax or unwind, so as not to cause suspicion out in the open, since it's just in their home. But yeah, as you saw, I took away some of the sconces there because there was just way too many, and I wanted it to look a little dark because it seems as though most speakeasies, or at least the ones I saw in the photos that I referenced, as well as in movies that I've seen, they're always kind of dark and I don't know. So that's what I was going for in here. I wish that the things that I put in the back didn't have the flags, because that would make more sense, but it is what it is, and I thought it looked pretty nice otherwise. I didn't use any CC in this, by the way, so if you want to download this, everything is Maxis. I was tempted though, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was very tempted because there is a bed that I loved that I found in its CC, because during this time period, it seemed as though a lot of beds were, it was popular to have a bed that was like metal, like a metal bed with like iron rods. You might have seen that in my example picture that I showed you guys in the beginning. But so going outside now, I jumped around a lot in this build because it took a while. I think it took around 6 hours or so. And so every 2.5 hours, I would take a break. So at this point, I wanted to do something kind of special for the backyard garden area. And what I noticed from research that I did, a lot of the estate gardens were very lush and very natural looking. So I wanted to incorporate a lot of flowers and flowering bushes in the garden area back here. So here in this area, I have a little table and there's a fountain here in the front. I also wanted to have some sort of a texture, so I lightly erased some of the terrain paint of the stones, so it looked like grass was growing a little bit over the stone path there. Over here on this area, I wanted it to be kind of a nice sitting garden area. So I put a lot of flowers, and I used one of the half arches that came with the Romantic Garden Stuff Pack. And that fairy statue, I just used the Control 9 key to raise it up to be on top of the fountain, so it looked like it was on top of the fountain. I did that in my abandoned Victorian build, and I just love it, so I used it again. So this room here is supposed to be a kid's room. Whether the family has 2 kids or not, I don't know, but in my machinima that's going to be at the end, just giving a video tour, I just have 1 child, but I mean, you can house a lot of people in this house. There are 4 bedrooms, I think. But yeah, so coming out here again, I just wanted to briefly go back to the garden area because I totally forgot about these big flower circle type things that came with City Living. And I noticed in one of the pictures that I saw of an actual 20s garden, they had something similar to this, and they had like a pedestal in the center with like a statue, or was it like a giant vase with flowers in it? But either way, I thought it would be really nice to include, just add some color and something interesting to the garden. So yeah, so I had a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out the colors that I wanted to go with in the child's room, but I think I just ended up sticking with either a purple or a pink using the new wallpaper we got with the Vampire Stuff Pack. And I wanted it to also be somewhat of a playroom as well for the kids. I really like how this ensuite bathroom for the kids' room turned out. It's kind of blue themed, I guess, but I liked how the mirrors overlapped. I'm surprised that the mirrors didn't glitch or anything. I wish that we had more ornate horizontal mirrors, because we really just have 1 horizontal mirror that is a good size to span like 2 squares. And the other horizontal mirrors that we have in game are so tiny. So there's that. So this room here is supposed to be a skill building room. And after I recorded, I added an easel and some other things in that room. So if needed, that can also be another bedroom. So in total, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms technically. So it's a pretty big house. If you wanted to download this and you had a bigger family. So this area up here is kind of like a informal living room because the formal living room is downstairs to the right after you walk in the front door. So yeah, because up here you can see into the Great Hall as well as the dining room, so you kind of get a nice view of everything. So this room here is the master bedroom, and I really wanted it to be more subdued originally, but I loved this rug, the one with the roses that came in the vampire stuff pack, and I kind of based the whole entire room off of that rug. So that's like the curtains and the bed and some of the other choices in the room are completely based off of that rug. So I really like how it turned out. It's not my taste at all, but I think it's pretty good for the time period and just kind of what I was thinking for the couple that owns the estate and what they might be like. I also really like how their bathroom turned out. I based the bathroom's kind of theme or colors off of the stained glass windows that I placed in here just to add a little bit of light, and I was kind of excited to use some items that I don't normally use ever, like the tile and the stained glass windows themselves, because I feel like they don't really work for most everything, but it was perfect for this type of build, so I was pretty excited to use that. And here I was planning on putting in like a wardrobe or a walk-in closet, but I decided to put in a fireplace and a private seating area instead. So that's what I did here. In this room particularly, it's very neutral and there's not a lot of bright colors or anything. I kind of imagined maybe a teen girl would be in this room, or a young adult, but this is probably one of my favorite rooms in the house. It's more my style, I think. I wasn't sure what to do with this room exactly, so I just made it into like a guest bathroom for the upstairs, but it could easily be made into another bedroom if need be. But it's a pretty good size bathroom, and I really like how I used the divider because it kind of sections off the room since it's kind of a spacious room to begin with. But anyways, guys, I think we're almost done with furnishing the house. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. I can't wait for next weekend. Next weekend is going to be a storybook bungalow from the 20s, so I'm really excited for that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!